And in the year 2000, the last male was seen in the wild. But since then, and because these animals were poached because they're so beautiful for the pet trade, there were 11 of them left around the world in private collections, most of them illegally taken from the wild. So then from those 11 founder birds, they began to reproduce and send birds back to Brazil. In 2022, 22 birds were put back into the wild. In fact, my team went down there to film the Spix macaw being re-released into the wild, and I wasn't able to go. So this is one of the only times I've ever got to interact with these absolutely striking bluebirds.
Then they put tags
now,
on
the
them.
initial groups that were released into the wild were semi-successful. So what they did is they took these birds back to Brazil. They did a whole bunch of habitat restoration, and they built an area to slow release these beautiful birds. They had them in an outside enclosure in the forest in Brazil where they needed to go. They trained other parrots to show them how to leave the enclosures and go out into the forest, into the nesting area. And slowly over time, those 22 birds went out, and then a miracle in 2024 as the first wild hatch chicks in over 20 years were born in the forest. And sadly, the birds born in 2025 contain circovirus. So that is a fatal virus, and the birds have now had to be recaptured from the wild, treated, and will once again be re-released. But Vantara is working here with an unbelievably beautiful insurance colony, making sure that these birds are reproducing, flying them to Brazil to help all of the Brazilian efforts to reintroduce them into the wild, to bring the literal bird from the movie Rio, the Spix macaw, one of the most beautiful parrots in the entire world, back from extinction.
Now, let's take a look at another species that nearly disappeared forever.
Look at these beautiful animals that are extinct in the wild, the smallest species of oryx in the world. Let's go and meet their keeper. Here's the man himself. How are you, Shamshad?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, brother.
Forest.
So you're the king of the hoofstock around here.
Yeah. So
Tell me about the Arabian oryx.
So Arabian oryx, they belongs to the Middle East, Arabian Peninsula,
Saudi Arabia, Dubai, UAE. Yeah.
I have seen them in the wild.
You have seen them in the wild.
Yes.
You are very lucky then,
Yeah.
because in 1972, these species were completely extinct in the wild, right?
Exactly.
What?
So what happened? There were lots of hunting happened. Because of when the oil was discovered, and they were chasing these animals with the
quad bikes.
And then the hunting goes on, and then.
So 1972, the last wild one was seen. Then in the 1980s, they started reintroducing them to the wild.
So currently, it is considered that more than 1,000 individuals are in the wild.
Yeah.
And which is a good number.
I have never seen this.
Is the actually much more than the threshold that is 250 individuals.
That's right.
That is a neat, viable population to sustain a wild population in the wild.
Without genetic bottlenecking. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the only species to ever go from extinct in the wild, critically endangered,
and
vulnerable.
Yes.
How cool is that? Soon, hopefully, they'll just be a threatened, near threatened, and then least concern.
Least concern.
Why do some of these, I assume males, because males and females both have the big horns, why do they have pipe covers on their horns?
So when they were rescued here during the transportation, to avoid any aggression and injuries, these horn caps are kept.
Makes sense.
To protect the individual.
So those tubes are keeping them safe. They're here, and Shamshad and his team are working on potentially partnering with the rewilding efforts to help contribute to the ongoing success of an unbelievably beautiful, smallest oryx species in the world that is one of the most desert-adapted species on Earth that has absolutely every right to still be on this planet. It's thanks to incredible keepers like him that bred them back from extinction. Let's go see our next extinct animal. Apparently, our next extinct in the wild animal is incredibly aggressive. So there's one male, a whole lot of females, and we're gonna risk it for the biscuit here. So these are pure Davidson deer, is that right?
Yes.
Tell me about them.
So right now, where we are standing, we are quarantining them over here.
That's right.
And as we all know that
40 rescues, right?
Yes. These guys are semi-aquatic species.
That's
right. So we are creating a habitat so they can go they can thermoregulate themselves in a water body.
And these are new rescues, 40 pure Davidson deer, an animal that was extinct in the wild that lived in marshes and wetlands in China, have been rescued by Ventara. And now there's one male and a group of females, one male here and a group of females, and one male and a group of females over there. 3 different enclosures that you've split them up
It's crazy how
to prevent
different
infighting.
animals got different races.
Now,
Like,
what's
what
so
the fuck?
interesting about pure Davidson
like
deer
people.
is they were extinct in China. And my understanding is in the late 1800s, they were down to only one group left, one herd of pure Davidson deer, and they were trapped by the Qing dynasty and put into their private hunting reserve.
In 1895, there is a one flood, and because of that flood, the population is going in a danger at that time.
It breached the walls and they escaped. So the only known population escaped in 1895, and then they were shot, they were hunted, and they thought that this animal, this pure Davidson deer, was extinct completely. But the dynasty actually sent just a handful of individuals. Do you know how many?
Yes, there are only few individuals, around 20, 30.
Sent to Europe.
Yes.
And every single pure Davidson deer that's alive today was brought back from those individuals.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So it's again a great success of captive population.
Right. Now, they're a very interesting looking deer. They're very wetland specific, which is why you literally dug this just for them, right?
Yes.
And flooded it. And this is their little quarantine zone.
They are feeling safe over there.
Right. In
Because
the corner.
we are over here, they are feeling safe over there. Why? Because we are giving, you can see the Napier grass.
Yeah.
So it acts as a visual barrier.
That's right. Yeah.
Feels that they are in a nature, they are in a safe zone.
And this is just the quarantine. They'll have a big open paddock with tons of bush and places to hide and a swampy ecosystem as soon as they're done with quarantine. Now, what is Ventara going to do outside of rescuing these 3 groups or this big herd? What is the management plan for these animals?
After the settling over here, we are studying on their genetic lines. If they are coming from the very great genetic lines, then we are going to, a conservation breeding program.
Right.
Then in that particular program, we selected
got
some
the good
males
genes.
and good females, and then we carry on with those genetic lines.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys rescued these 40. They're really cool. We'll get out here an unbelievable swampy deer from China that was extinct in the wild for hundreds of years until a single group went back to China from Europe and has now repopulated that area, bringing them back from extinction, an animal that I've never seen in person in my life before today that is allegedly very aggressive, and just wait until you get to meet our next extinct animal. All right, next up on our list of extinct creatures, something that has a very close personal touch to my heart, Kevin. No, I'm just kidding. Kevin is a longtime friend of mine and one of the world's leading reptile breeders. And here at Ventara, they have these guys. Now, this is obviously an adult, and then this is a juvenile Rhode Island snake-necked turtle. Now, I love these guys, but what's so interesting about Rhode Islands, Kev?
So basically where they come from 2 lakes, and the lakes are crystal clear. And it was very easy back in the 90s for pet keepers and whatever to go into these areas and collect all of them. So intrinsically, they're extinct from the wild, and now we just have to depend on the potential in captivity for captive breeding, reintroduction, head starting programs, habitat development, and community outreach.
That's an ugly ass turtle.
I absolutely love these animals. They're part of a large group of snake-necked turtles, and you can see where the name comes from. It's this long, crazy neck that'll bend into the shell, as Kevin's showing you there. But Rhodies are so cool because while there are several snake necks, few of them have this rounded head and front area and this very, very neat like brown plaster on here. But I think they're just one of the most beautiful turtles in the world, and sadly, as Kevin said, they were poached to extinction from the wild for the pet collection because they are so charismatic and characterful. Because of that, and because of habitat degradation, they were expatriated from the wild, but now ongoing conservation and restoration efforts for Rhode Island snake necks on Rhode Island in Indonesia near Timor are actively taking place, and people like Kevin, who are breeding these animals, will hopefully one day be putting them back into the wild, right, Kev?
That's absolutely our intent here at Ventara. We have to do pretty much find animals in peril, and if we have possibilities of being able to reproduce them, acquiring our gene stock, we obviously do a lot of rescues too, but once we get our gene stock, then set up breeding programs where we can breed them. The breeding is not so hard. It's pretty much having pristine enclosures, pristine environments, and giving what they need, and then naturally they'll lay eggs.
Right.
Because you don't want to have the whole thing being exploited again. You don't want to have the next batch of collectors coming in there, because McCordi are very, very rare.
Motherfucker
They're
like a
highly
dinosaur.
sought after. But now, since we're breeding them in captivity, that's going to reduce the demand. But ultimately, one of the components of Ventara is always rewilding, working with endangered species, working with programs, countries, wherever. If it's birds, if it's reptiles, which I'm here for, the reptiles.
Just imagine
those
how
are one
long
of our
all these
target
shits been
activities
here.
that we
Like,
want to do.
Thanks for all
They
your
just
work on
didn't
these.
come from
We're going to go
nowhere.
on and go see our next extinct
Right.
animal. Next up is this beautiful cheetah right here. Now, I know what you're thinking at home. You're thinking cheetahs are not an extinct species in the wild. You can go on safari in Africa and see them. But what a lot of people don't realize is that cheetahs once roamed the wilds of India. So Dr. Adrian here is the
Yeah, they had
head
to get rid of them
person in
motherfuckers,
charge
though. You know,
of
India,
figuring
they
out
fighting
what
the
to do
cheetahs.
with cheetahs and getting them back into the wild in India, right?
Hey.
Yeah, that's certainly one of our main projects and main ideas. We obviously have a different subspecies to what previously would have occurred in India.
Right.
Most likely Asiatic cheetah that would have occurred in India. That has gone extinct mid or late 1940s, early 1950s. Obviously, when you start off with a reintroduction program, you need a large number of animals to provide the genetic diversity. Otherwise, all you're going to end up with is a bottleneck. You know, you'll be creating
Absolutely.
a bottleneck.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And that's
cousins
what we
and
want to
shit.
try and avoid. So here we have got over 150 cheetahs. We've got a good population. We are doing complete genetic profiling of all of these cheetahs.
Yep.
So we have a very good understanding of who they are and where they come from. And we can then move forward with breeding them. The second and third generation, potentially rewilding them, also making them available to just help with that genetic diversity.
I was about to
So
say
we could
being
even
a
make
pet.
males available to mate with wild
Cheetahs.
free-roaming cheetahs
Yeah.
in India, and then that would be a way of those cubs would be obviously have a greater genetic diversity.
So for hundreds of years, Indian sheiks and royalty would actually capture cheetahs
Yeah, I was
to
about
help
to
them
say,
hunt
yeah.
small antelope and things for game and for food. But when the British came here and really started hunting big predators in India,
guns.
specifically around the early 1940s, that was the nail in the coffin for the Asiatic cheetah. Now here at Ventara, Dr. Adrian and his team have brought these southern African cheetahs back to India, and they are breeding them, and they're getting them used to the climate, the gut load, the bacteria, the biome, everything that they need, including the prey, to be able to go back into
Bro,
the
imagine
wild
having
and
a cheetah, though.
successfully
That
once
shouldn't be
again
live, I ain't gonna lie.
have wild Asiatic cheetahs.
Up next, we've got one last beautiful
damn
horned
horn
species to
things.
meet and one of the people behind keeping it alive.
All right, so what do we
Where
have
y'all
here?
come from?
Hi. Here you can see the scimitar horned oryx.
Scimitar horned oryx, named because their horns
One is
curve backwards like a
yeah,
scimitar.
Yeah,
Right.
the sword kind of.
Like the
So-
sword, yeah, exactly.
And you can see the color. So they have a brownish white.
Yep.
So you can see that they are desert animals.
That's
So-
right, yep.
So they can easily adapt to that environment. So they
Uh-huh.
have a high temperature in the northern Africa.
Yeah.
So they will live there.
These guys, if I'm not wrong, there used to be thousands of
Yeah.
them across the
Yeah.
Sahara, in West Africa,
What
into the
fuck
Middle East,
creates
Yeah.
these
but
animals?
they were hunted
Yeah.
to
mainly
extinction.
For the, mainly for the horns and the meats.
As
for
a trophy, the
yeah,
horns as a
yeah.
trophy?
Yeah.
They do have beautiful
Yeah.
horns, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would happen.
That's the main reason they were extinct in the wild in
Uh-huh.
around the year 2000.
2000?
Yeah, it's
a
one
very
of the
recent
recent
extinction. Wow.
Yeah. Recently, because of the captive population, so they bred. So now they in around 2016 they planned for the reintroduction back to the wild.
Okay.
So
They be
they
fucking
they
for it.
released in the Chad region of Africa.
In Chad?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so in the Central Africa. So this population still settling and slowly growing.
Yep.
So now they are declared as an endangered species.
Endangered species. So the scimitar horned oryx, one of the most beautiful desert species in the world from the Sahara
Okay,
Desert,
endangered is one, like,
a perfectly desert
step up from
adapted
extinct.
species, an
Yeah.
animal that can go months without a single lick of water and actually has
Damn.
specialized cells in its blood to cool down their brain, to keep their brain from overheating and malfunctioning when they're racing across the desert. Now these guys
What?
used to number in the thousands in their range, but because of those beautiful scimitar-like horns, and because they're a big giant meat bag, they were hunted to extinction as recently as 2000. One of the most recent mammalian extinctions. So going from literal extinction,
Zero.
no more in the year 2000. 16 years later, they start being reintroduced, and today there's around 600 of these animals in the wild. So once again, Ventara goes above and beyond. They're doing everything they can. They're working to partner with the scimitar horned oryx groups that are on the ground to reproduce this insurance colony, this captive population that can ultimately bring this species further back from extinction. Animals do have a place in captivity, and I think this video, more than any other video, may be showing that, how important it is to actually keep certain animals that are on the edge of existence in captivity. Let me know in the comments below if you guys agree.